Hey guys, I'm IzDaisho and I am here bringing you a new video, and hopefully this one will be pretty cool. I think it's a really good idea, and I know it's a little late to do this kind of video, but anyway, what I'm going to do now is give you an M13 review. A lot of people do M13 or set previews or whatever, where they basically say, okay, I think that this card is going to be this good and this card is going to be that good. But now that I've played a ton with M13, I've done a lot of drafts, I've watched a lot of drafts on stream and stuff. I think I have not a large amount of expertise, but some amount, so that I can actually give you an experienced opinion on how these cards are. Obviously, it's a little bit irrelevant because M13 is going out pretty soon, but that's okay. I think it could still be a pretty useful video, especially for those of you who are still loving M13 just as much as I am. It's pretty much, I would have to say, one of my more favorite sets. But anyway, let's get started. I'm just gonna go through this. This video is just gonna be the white cards, and then if that goes well, then maybe I'll do this video for all the others. I hope that you guys enjoy it though. Anyway, let's start. Ajani, Caller of the Pride. Obviously, this guy's awesome. I don't think I really need to read the cards since you guys have probably read them all already. But I've seen this card played a few times against me. I've never used it myself, but I know how powerful it can be. It starts at 4, and then its plus is relevant, especially if you're running like a black-white deck and you have a bunch of evasion, or and just that extra +1/+1 counter already on your exalted guy is really relevant. The -3 to give your creature evasion is super relevant, and generally though what happens with Ajani is you really just play Protect the Ajani game, and you try to ultimate him, because if you ultimate him, you win, and it's really not that hard to do because you're playing this guy on turn 3, so they really might not have any way to deal with him. So, Ajani, Caller of the Pride, I give him a 9.5 out of 10. I guess I should probably get this out of the way now. There's going to be, people are going to disagree, but I really don't think that your disagreements will be more than 1 point or a 0.5 away. But sometimes I do make a pretty distinct difference between like a 6 and a 6.5. So I don't know. Sorry if you if you disagree, but these are just my opinions, and obviously it's not going to be the same as anyone else. Anyway, Ajani Sunstriker is white for a 2/2 lifelink, so it's pretty much completely fairly costed. Normally, a 1 and a white would be a 2/2 for 2, and you'll see that's the case with Silvercoat Lion. And that's completely fair cost, and this guy has lifelink, so you think, oh, that's not fair, but he does have the double white symbol, which is actually extremely restrictive. It means that if you're going to run less than really 8 planes, then you can't run this guy, and you don't want to. So that's definitely a minus for him. But that being said, he could be really strong in your deck if you've got a decent amount of exalted. So I give Ajani Sunstriker a 6 out of 10 because he has a lot of upside, but it's also pretty difficult to run him in your deck sometimes. So yeah, 6 is pretty much like the average for a card that you want to be running. You'll see later on, I guess, how I rate them. Anyway, Angelic Benediction. Whenever creature attacks alone, you may tap target creature. This is one of those cards. It's an uncommon that like, you're okay when it tables and you're happy, but you don't exactly want to put it in your deck. Like, you can put it in your deck and you'll be happy with it there sometimes, but then sometimes you're just going to draw it and you're going to be like, this card doesn't do anything, why is it in my deck? And anyway, so Angelic Benediction, I give a 5 out of 10 because that's one of those cards that you can run, but you don't exactly want to. Now let's move on to Angel's Mercy. I don't really need to talk about this for long. It's like a 2.5 or a 3. I'll just say a 3 out of 10. Does not make a difference. Nobody's going to really run that card unless you're playing against some super hyper aggro red-black deck that you think you can stabilize against if you just gain 7 more life. But it's pretty bad. So anyway, Attendant, obviously an awesome card. This is pretty much like one of the premier commons in white. I give it a 7 out of 10. You always want to be running this card and pretty much as many of these as possible. Aven Squire, I give a 7.5 out of 10. I think it's just one step above Attendant Knight, and it's basically, other than pacifism, is tied for the best common in white, in my opinion. I mean, obviously the fact that it can swing in for 2, the fact that it is relevant in an exalted deck because it's got evasion and it gives exalted itself, and it does all that for 2 at the common spot, makes it just a really good card. And again, you want to be running as many of these as possible. It's just, in white, it's the cheapest exalted creature. There's also Duty Bend in black, which is a little bit cheaper, but in white, it's the cheapest exalted creature, and its ability is just relevant, so it's kind of like better than some of the other exalted creatures that aren't as relevant. But anyway, really, really good card. You pretty much always want to take it. The question between a Tendonite and Aven Squire, I think, usually goes to Aven Squire, unless your deck has a significant need for a Tendonite. I guess there is something that I didn't really talk about with a Tendonite that makes it relevant. It's good in either version of the white deck, because there's two main versions of the white deck. You can either build the Exalted white deck or the Tokens white deck, and obviously this guy works well in Tokens because you pay 3 mana to get a 2/2 first strike, which is already relevant, and then it also comes with the Soldier. So if you're playing the Trumpet Blast deck, or if you are basing your deck around Griffin Protector or Healer of the Pride, then this guy counts double for that. So very, very useful in that sense. Anyway, Battleflight Eagle. I gave this a 5 out of 10. I rated it pretty much exactly the same as Angelic Benediction. It's actually pretty good in the green-white deck because you can give your Centaur Coursers or Sentinel Spiders or Primal Humpies flying for a turn, beat them for 5. So it's basically like a Lava Axe, and you get to get a 2/2 flyer out of it. So it could be a really, really good card, but outside of that archetype, it's pretty much not something you want to be playing. Most of your creatures are going to have flying anyway, or even or it could be useful in the Exalted deck, I suppose. But I mean, I've played with this card, and it's done good things for me, and it's also done bad things for me. Anyway, Captain of the Watch. I give Captain of the Watch an 8.5 out of 10. This card is kind of like a bomb. You get to put 9 power on the board, at least, because because you get 6 from that and 3 3s, and they're all vigilance. It's just a really, really strong card. There's a couple of other soldiers like Aven Squire and Crusader of Odric that do benefit from his ability also, but for the most part, it's just for him. And it's just really hard to beat this card when it hits the table. So I give it an 8.5 out of 10. Not the best card, obviously. Did I even say what I gave Ajani? I don't even remember. If I did not say what I gave it, that would be a really bad way to start. But I gave him a 9.5 out of 10. Sorry. Captain's Call. Okay, so this card is actually pretty hard to rate because sometimes it can be terrible and sometimes it can be awesome. In the Exalted deck, it's pretty terrible. It does almost nothing. It just chump blocks a couple of times. But in the deck where you're running Trumpet Blast, Healer of the Pride, Griffin Protector, that deck it's actually pretty good. So in that deck, it's a 7. Otherwise, it's a 4 in my opinion. It's just that bad that it really just does nothing for you. Crusader of Odric. I love this card. It's can be so useful, and sometimes it can be terrible. You can also get 2-for-1 with it because they can Searing Spear one of your creatures in response, and then all of a sudden your guy dies in combat and you're just a sad panda. But I still managed to give it, I still think that it's a 7 out of 10. I think it's about as good as a Tendonite, and it's a couple steps higher than a Ajani Sunstriker. Given the chance between Tendonite and Crusader of Odric, it really just depends on the deck, but I would say that you pretty much usually take Aven Squire over it. So it's definitely a step lower than Aven Squire, and pretty much and a couple steps higher over Ajani Sunstriker. So that's how I rate it. Anyway, Divine Favor. It's not really a good card, but it's been sideboarded to good effect. Not many times, but it has happened. I've seen it, so I gave it a 3. You can run this card in your sideboard. Never really should be in the main board, but I guess it could be a 23rd card in a really bad draft. Divine Verdict, sorry, is I gave it a 6.5. I think it's a bad removal spell, but it is a good card. So you should pretty much run these usually, unless you have a huge overabundance of 4-drops, but you don't necessarily want to run 3 of them. You can run 2 to good effect, 1 is happy, and if you're low on removal, then this is a card that you're going to want to pick up at some point in the draft. So I gave it a 6.5 out of 10. Erase 2. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. Pretty much anything less than 3 is unplayable in your main board. Obviously, this card can be sideboarded to good effect if they have a Rancor or some other enchantment that you want to destroy. Although, I mean, Mark of the Vampire and Tricks of the Trade is probably not worth it to bring in Erase, but it could be. The other day I was playing a deck where my opponent was running 2 Tricks of the Trade, Tricks of the Trade, 2 Marks, and a Dark Favor. So I sided it in and ended up discarding it to a Ravenous Rat. So not too relevant. Anyway, I don't know why I decided to bring up that story. Okay, Fisherboard. I give it a 5 out of 10. I put it pretty much in the same spot as Angelic Benediction and Battleflight Eagle. I'll play this card if I have to, but I really don't want to. I've had it used against me where if my opponent had any other card, I would have won the game, but they had this card, so I lost. But that doesn't mean that it's a good card. It just means that in one scenario, it was the best card. This card is extremely scenario specific, so there will be times when it's amazing, but most of the time it will be pretty much useless, and it's just going to be a dead card. I also played it in a couple of drafts and pretty much ended up discarding it every single time to Remjin Goblin, so it's just not very good. Glorious Charge is, anyway, face reward was 5 out of 10. Sorry if I didn't say that. Glorious Charge, I gave it a 2.5. You don't want to be running this card. You almost never want to sideboard this card. It's just pretty bad. Like, man, I should have looked this up, but the card in Dark Ascension or Innistrad, yeah, Dark Ascension, which had Fateful Hour to give all your creatures indestructible, was barely even playable, and that was the same thing, and that had more like token-based effects, I guess. I don't know, maybe not. I don't know. If you really, really need a Trumpet Blast and you don't have any, then this card can work. So it's not a 0 out of 10. There are 0 out of 10s. Griffin Protector, I love this card. Second best common in my opinion, or tied with Aven Squire behind Pacifism. And this card I gave a 7.5 out of 10. It's a 2/3 flyer, which is amazing in this format because it means that it can block a Bloodhunter Bat, Welkin Turn, Windrake, Towering tokens, Towering Invocation tokens. It can trade with a Furnace Whelp. It can literally, not literally, but it can almost block every single thing. The only thing that actually beats it in combat is Fairy Invaders when it's attacking, but generally this guy's going to be at least a 3/4 when Griffin Protector will be a 3/4 when it's attacking, so it's pretty awesome. Obviously it can combo super well with Captain Skull or Krankus Command and stuff like that, and it's a huge part of that token deck that you want. Flying, evasion, power, where your 1/1 tokens aren't dead even late game, even without a Trumpet Blast. This card is pretty awesome. So 7.5 out of 10. Guardian Lions card is not good. I gave it a 3 out of 10. It's a 1/6. Sometimes that's where you want to be. You want to have the 1/6 if they have a ton of like Reckless Brutes and stuff. But even then, you'd rather play Pillar Field Ox. So this card is really next to useless. Guardians of Akraza. I actually like this card a lot. Generally, defenders are just like meh, but in this case, this guy is actually pretty awesome because Exalted is a really useful ability, and one of the biggest problems with Exalted is most of the Exalted creatures have 1 toughness, so they don't block very well. So your opponent just says, okay, you can swing in for 4, but I'll swing in with like my 7 power of creatures, and you can't do anything about it. But now this guy says, no, I'll block 3 of it. So it's pretty good. I do like Guardians of Akraza. I gave it a 6 out of 10. I can hear an argument for like 6.5, but definitely not any higher than that. It's also worthy of note that earlier in the game, Exalted is early in the draft, Exalted is a lot more useful. Exalted, like, you want a critical mass of Exalted if you're building that black-white Exalted deck, so you want like 7 or 8 of them. So I can see somebody taking like a Guardians of Akraza over a Crusader of Odric if they wanted to get more Exalted earlier on in the draft. But generally, Guardians of Akraza is just okay to good. Like I mean I have first picked this card. It's definitely a card that you want in your deck, but it's not necessarily the best white common or anything like that. Healer of the Pride. I gave Healer of the Pride a 6.5, mainly because other people love it so much. I really don't like this card. I almost never want to be playing this card, but I've seen it do a lot of work, and some people like it. So 2/3 body is pretty relevant. Well, it's not that relevant. Generally, I mean, there's a ton of 3/3s in the format, but there is also a fair amount of bears. So depending on what your opponent's playing, a 2/3 body could be pretty relevant. And the fact that it gains you 2 life whenever you play creatures, okay. But what I usually do is whenever somebody argues that this is a really good card, is I say, well, actually, it's more like Soul Warden, because Soul Warden gains you 1 life for when any creature enters the battlefield. So since you're only counting half of the creatures, then it's basically the same thing as Soul Warden, except it doesn't come down until turn 4, so you miss like 4 life out of it, 3 or 4 life. Anyway, next card, moving on to Intrepid. Oh, by the way, I know I mentioned it already, but I'll mention it again. Healer of the Pride, 6.5. Intrepid Hero. I give Intrepid Hero an 8. This card is really hard to beat, and it's amazing against certain decks. So it means that they can't ever pump their creatures to power 4. It means that anytime you're playing against a green deck, they're going to be sad when they're holding their Sentinel Spiders and their Garruk's Companion or Garruk's Pack Leaders in hands. And if they're playing Exalted, this card just hoses Exalted completely because they just can't play enough Exalted creatures to attack for 4 or greater. So this card just shuts down so many decks that it's worthy of an 8. You want to basically pick this card over Aven Squire every time. So It's just one step above it. Night of Glory I originally had as an 8, but I really don't think it's that good, so I bumped it down to a 7.5. I don't think it's that much better than Aven Squire. I'll generally take it over Aven Squire because it is an uncommon, but obviously if they're playing a lot of black stuff, then this card will just win you the game straight up because it'll either block and provide Exalted for your other creatures to get in, or just get in itself. So this card's awesome. Protection from black is extremely relevant, especially since it protects it from all the black removal. So yeah, great card. Oblivion Ring is nothing new. We've seen this forever. 8.5 out of 10. That's pretty much what I rank the best removal spell in each color. So 8.5 out of 10. Well, except for green. Green doesn't really have good enough removal for, I think Prey Upon was like an 8. Anyway, we'll get to that later. Odric Master Tactician. Awesome card. 3/4 first strike 4. Obviously that's amazing. And then its ability just pretty much lets you win the game. So a card that powerful, I think he's slightly less powerful than Ajani. Without cost considerations, I would still take Ajani over Odric because I think Ajani just has slightly more impact on the game. So I give Odric a 9 out of 10. Awesome card though. Definitely take it if there's no like Ajani or something absurd in the pack over it, like a foil, if it's foil or something like that. Anyway, Pacifism, 8 out of 10. Just really good removal. So it gets an 8 out of 10. It's better than all the other white commons. 8 out of 10 is just really good. That's pretty much all you have to know. Pillar Field Ox is just not really good enough. I give him a 4 out of 10 because I've seen him run and he can be a 23rd card if you need him to be, but he's definitely just he's definitely not the ideal card. He's just a 2/4 for 4. Planar Cleansing is good. Really hard to determine how good just mass removal is. It's good in some scenarios, and sometimes if you draw it early, then you can build your game plan around it. Just play a couple of defensive creatures early on and allow your opponent to overextend, and then it'll win you the game. The fact that you get to choose when the card is cast means that you're at an advantage. That being said, if there's an Aven Squire and a Planar Cleansing in the pack, I'm not even blinking, I'm not even glancing at the Planar Cleansing, and I'm going to snap pick the Aven Squire. So I give Planar Cleansing a 6 out of 10. Some people will think it's a lot better, but I'm really just not a fan. It also is triple white, so sometimes you can't even cast it when you want to cast it. Prized Elephant. So this entire cycle threw me for a loop when I was trying to figure out how to rank them. It's pretty difficult to figure out what to do in terms of ranking these cards, because obviously in the green-white deck, this card's awesome. I mean, this card's a 4/4 for 4, which is just absurd, and it can get trample. So in this format, this card would just be so valued if that's all it was. But the fact is, you have to be playing green-white. So a lot of the times you're just going to see this card go around and around and around because nobody wants a 4-cost 3/3. Canyon Minotaur is just not that good, and nobody really wants it. So then there's also the fact that you could splash for it. How worth it is that? So I ended up giving Elephant a 7 out of 10. If it was in the green-white deck, it would be a 7.5 easily. I would definitely consider that between Aven Squire and Griffin Protector. Prize Elephant, I think that they're all pretty much on equal footing if you're running a green-white deck. So this card's awesome, 7 out of 10, just because of the insane upside that it's got. Rain of Blades. This card's actually is actually not good, but deals 1 damage to each attacking creature, but it's not terrible. It's a pretty good sideboard card. In a lot of scenarios, if they're playing the red-white tokens deck, then this card's awesome because they're just like, yeah, attack, Trumpet Blast, and then you just kill their entire side. So that's awesome. But it's also really good just against Exalted because a lot of their Exalted creatures, like even Tormented Soul and Aven Squire, have 1 power, so you can just use this card as a 1 mana kill target Aven Squire, and then that's just pretty awesome. It's just, I mean, it's just good. It's not pretty awesome. It's pretty much just good enough. So I like the card, and it's a good sideboard card. 4 out of 10. Rock's Faithmender. This card's okay. It's not great. I mean, it's a 1/5 lifelink for 4, so it obviously it has the doubling life effect. So sometimes it can be really useful if your opponent's playing an extremely aggressive deck. Otherwise, it does not do a significant amount of things that I really want to be running it. Obviously, in an Exalted deck, it's a lot better. So I ended up giving it a 6.5 out of 10. If you wanted to bump it up to a 7, I wouldn't kill you. I just don't like the card that much. And there's no way I would ever take it over a Griffin Protector, or probably even an Attended Knight. But anyway, Safe Passage is an okay card. It's a 5 out of 10. One of those cards that if it's your 23rd card, you're not upset, but you're not extremely happy either. Sublime Archangel is just, I mean, it's always been good, and it's still good even in this format. A 4/4 flyer, just pretty much outclasses everything. give it an 8 out of 10. Sarah Avatar is next to useless. It's a 7 mana card that can sometimes be like a 20/20, and it's hilarious. Or it could just be like a 6/6, and then you're just like, why am I playing this card? Even if it's an 8/8, you're just like, why am I playing this card? So I gave it, I did not even rate this card. That's how bad it is. No, I'll give it like a 4 out of 10. Sorry. I don't know. I have notes, and like I literally wrote down all the cards and rated them, but not Sarah Avatar. Anyway, Sarah Avenger, obviously just a really, really good card. It costs double white, but that's not a big deal because you can't play till turn 4 anyway. 3/3 flyers are still extremely relevant turn 4. Think about the other flyers that your opponents can play on turn 4. And then you think back to this guy and realize that this guy is awesome. He also has Vigilance, which means that unless they have like a Talon's Invocation, you can still just swing in on them and just be an extremely happy panda. So I gave it an 8.5 out of 10. A little bit better than Sarah Angel just because of the mana cost. But, I mean, if you wanted to say that they're both 8.5s or they're both 8s, then I wouldn't kill you. Show of Valor is pretty much, it's just an okay instant. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10, just like Safe Passage and all the other cards that were 5 out of 10. You don't really want to run them, but if you do run them, you're not too unhappy. Silvercoat Lion, I'm going to lead with the fact that bears in this format are really bad. There's like pretty much every 3-drop in the entire format just completely hoses them and says, okay, you don't do anything anymore. So it has one turn of effectiveness, and then it's complete garbage. So Silvercoat Lion I gave a 4. You don't want to run this card. You will run this card, but you will never want to. You'd rather just get any of the other 2-drops pretty much instead of him. So don't run Silvercoat Lion if you can avoid it, but obviously if you can't avoid it and you need an extra creature, then you can run it. But anyway, I'm still going to give it a 4 out of 10 because I think it's just not very good. Sublime Archangel, one of the best cards in the format, flying Exalted, other creatures have Exalted, so criteria I have for giving a card a 10, which I am going to give Sublime Archangel, is that it affects the board in an extreme way immediately, and it will win you the game within a couple of turns. So this does that because you play this card and then you swing in with something else for about 6 more damage, or about 4 more damage than you would have expected, so that's amazing. And then obviously within the next couple of turns, swing in with like a 7 or 8 power flyer at least will get you there. Obviously it is contingent upon the fact that you have other creatures. Otherwise this card is just going to be a 4/3 flyer for 4, which is still awesome. What is notable is that it has 3 toughness, so it can be killed by Searing Spear and Essence Drain, and obviously no sort of hexproof or anything. So it's can be killed by any of the removal in the format. But it's still good enough. I mean, obviously any card can be killed by removal. Saying that a card is not a 10 out of 10 just because it can be killed by removal is just not right. Anyway, it is a 10 out of 10 in my book. Best white card in the format. If you have a choice between foil, Sublime Archangel, and Ajani, then you take the Sublime Archangel, even without cost considerations. Touch of the Eternal. So this card is one of the few cards that I didn't even rate. I gave it a question mark. And the reason being is because pretty much every time I've seen this card, it's been stuck in the sideboard. But I have seen it a couple of times be the best card in somebody's deck, where once they play Touch of the Eternal, they don't lose, and then eventually they kill their opponent. But generally, I just don't think that this card is very good. And yeah, so it just gets a question mark, because about 10% or about 5% of the time it'll be the best card in your deck, but 95% of the time it'll just stay in the sideboard. War Falcon, I love War Falcon. This card is pretty awesome. I give it a 6 out of 10 because it is it's playable in most decks that are white, because you really don't need that many things to enable it. In AVR you wanted about 7 or 8 creatures with Soulbond to work with Flowering Lumbernut, but this is a lot different because your knights are not really prime targets for your opponent's removal like a Trusted Force Mage would have been. So an Attended Knight brings along a soldier. They're not going to kill the soldier. Aven Squire is a pretty good target for removal, but yeah, Crusader Vodric, Captain's Call, and then the best guy, he's best friends with Guardians of Akraza. Nobody ever wants to kill a Guardians of Akraza. It's even hard for them to kill a Guardians of Akraza. They basically have to murder it. So basically, if you play Guardians of Akraza, your War Falcon will be online for the rest of the game. Not only that, but since he can still block, it means that he can trade with any of the two toughness flyers, Arctic Aven included. So he's pretty awesome in general, and you don't really have any 1-drops that you want to be playing anyway. So He only costs you a card. He doesn't cost you any mana really. So I like War Falcon, and I'll run him with 3 soldiers. That will be my minimum. If I only have 2, I won't run him. But yeah, so I like this card, and I think that it can be playable in most white decks, not all. But yeah, War Priest of Thune is pretty good. It's one of the better 2-drops in white. It's not amazing, obviously, since it's a 2/2 for 2. So it's got this weird thing going on where you don't really want to play it early because there's no enchantments to destroy, but it's going to be useless as a creature later. But still, just the fact that you have 2 options to use this card means that in my book it will be a 6.5 out of 10. So it's a lot better than Silvercoat Lion just because of the fact that it can destroy an enchantment. And then there's War Clamp Mastiff, which is not an interesting last card in the format. It's just a 1/1 first strike for 1. It's not playable. I give it a 3 out of 10. So, okay, hope you guys enjoyed that whole thing. If you have any suggestions on how I can do this in a better way, or if you're just extremely upset at me for doing this for some reason, I guess I could do it like, oh my god, where did all the cards? There they are. I think it's better with the pictures though. Then let me know. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and have a wonderful day. Bye.